If you own a bar or a nightclub, you already know you need liquor liability insurance. What you may not know is that your liquor liability policy probably does not cover one of the most expensive claims your business will ever face. A fight breaks out on a Saturday night, someone gets hurt, they sue your bar for not providing a safe environment. Your liquor liability policy may exclude assault and battery entirely. Your general liability policy may exclude it too. And the claim that hits hardest in this industry is sitting in the gap between those two policies. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jim Eddington, and my agency helps individuals and businesses with their insurance every single day. It's a Saturday night, the bar is full, two guys at the end of the bar get into it over something that does not matter. One of them shoves the other into a table, a chair breaks, a third person catches an elbow and ends up on the ground with a cut above their eye. Your bartender calls security over and your bouncer steps in to break it up. He grabs one of the guys and walks him toward the door. The guy resists. The bouncer pushes harder than he should. Now you have a patron with a head laceration. You have a second patron claiming your bouncer used excessive force, and you have a room full of witnesses with phones. The injured patron's attorney is not going to go after the guy who threw the first shove. That guy probably does not have assets to make it worth pursuing. The attorney is coming after your bar because your bar has insurance and your bar has a duty to provide a safe environment. The bouncer claim is coming after you too because your bouncer was acting as your employee when the force was used. So you call your insurance company. This is where most bar owners find out what their policy actually says. Your general liability policy may contain an assault and battery exclusion. That exclusion removes coverage for injuries arising from physical altercations on your premises. Your liquor liability policy covers claims arising from serving alcohol to someone who is intoxicated. It may not cover the fight itself. These are two separate exposures, and many bar owners assume one of their existing policies handles both. In a lot of cases, neither one does. Assault and battery is the coverage that fills the gap between general liability and liquor liability for bars and nightclubs. Depending on the carrier, it may be written as an endorsement, a separate coverage part, a buyback, or a standalone policy. It covers physical altercations between patrons, injuries to bystanders, claims arising from security personnel using force, and in some cases, incidents that happen just outside your establishment as patrons are leaving. This isn't a standard coverage that comes with a general liability policy. Most GL policies for bars and nightclubs specifically exclude assault and battery. The exclusion exists because insurers know that physical altercations are a predictable risk in establishments that serve alcohol late into the night. Predictable risk is exactly the kind of risk that gets excluded from a standard form and sold back as a separate coverage or endorsement. The scope of assault and battery coverage varies by carrier. Some policies cover patron-on-patron fights. Some extend to claims involving your security staff. Some cover incidents that happen in your parking lot or on the sidewalk outside your door. Some do not. The wording matters and the wording varies. If you own a bar or nightclub and you do not have assault and battery coverage, you're carrying the most predictable risk in the nightlife industry on your own balance sheet. Your bouncer works for you. When your bouncer uses force to remove a patron, your bar can be held responsible for how that force was applied. If the force was reasonable and proportional, your bar may have a defense. If the force was excessive, your bar may have a serious liability claim on its hands. Here's where it gets complicated. Most bar insurance policies draw a line between negligent acts and intentional acts. If your bouncer negligently injures someone while doing their job, the policy may cover it. If the injury is ruled intentional, the policy may exclude it. The problem is that every use of force by a bouncer is intentional to some degree. They meant to grab the person. They meant to push them toward the door. The legal question is whether the level of force was reasonable under the circumstances, and that question gets answered after the fact, not before. This means your bouncer's training, your written policies on use of force, and your documented procedures for handling intoxicated or aggressive patrons all become part of the claim file. An insurer wants to see that your security staff knows where the line is and that your business has procedures in place to keep them on the right side of it. Bars that use third-party security companies add another layer. If the security company has their own insurance, there may be a question about whose policy responds first. If they don't have adequate coverage or their policy excludes assault and battery, your bar's policy may end up responding to the claim anyway. Before you hire any outside security, ask to see their certificate of insurance and confirm what their policy covers. A restaurant that happens to serve alcohol is not the same risk as a bar where alcohol is the primary revenue driver. Insurers know that, and the underwriting reflects it. When a carrier looks at a bar or nightclub, they're evaluating the percentage of revenue that comes from alcohol sales, the hours of operation, whether there's a dance floor, whether there's live entertainment, the capacity of the venue, the ratio of security staff to patrons, and the claims history. A bar that closes at midnight with a food menu and table service is a different risk profile than a nightclub that stays up until 2 in the morning with a DJ and a dance floor. That is why the coverage stack changes. A restaurant can often get liquor liability as an endorsement on a BOP or as a part of a commercial package. A bar or nightclub may need a standalone liquor liability policy with higher limits, assault and battery coverage that addresses security-related incidents, and a commercial umbrella that actually follows form over those underlying coverages. The later the hours, the higher the exposure. Alcohol consumption increases as the night goes on. Patron judgment decreases. The likelihood of an altercation goes up. Carriers price that in, and some carriers decide the math does not work for them at all. Some carriers will not write bars or nightclubs at all. The ones that will are specialty markets that understand nightlife operations. Your independent agent should know which carriers write this class of business and which ones are going to decline it or exclude the exposures that matter most. General liability covers slip and falls, third-party property damage, and the standard premises liability claims. It probably excludes assault and battery. It does not cover claims arising from alcohol service. Liquor liability covers claims arising from serving alcohol to someone who was intoxicated, visibly intoxicated, or underage, depending on the state and the facts. This is the dram shop exposure. In states like Utah and Arizona, injured third parties generally have a clearer statutory path to pursue the establishment when alcohol service contributes to the injury. In Nevada and California, the statutes are much more protective of licensees, so classic dram shop exposure is narrower. But that doesn't mean bars and nightclubs are claim-proof. You can still face premises liability, negligent security, assault and battery, employee conduct, and other claims tied to what happened on or around your property. We covered the dram shop framework in detail in a previous video on the channel. Assault and battery coverage fills the gap that general liability and liquor liability leave open. Physical altercations, bouncer incidents, and patron injuries from violence on your premises. This is the coverage most bar owners either do not have or assume is included somewhere in their existing policies. Workers' compensation covers your employees when they're injured on the job. Bartenders, bouncers, servers, barbacks. Late night establishments have a higher injury frequency than daytime operations. Broken glass, wet floors behind the bar, physical confrontation that security staff gets pulled into. Commercial property covers the building, the equipment, the sound system, the lighting, the bar build out, the inventory. Fire, theft, vandalism, patron damage. If you've spent real money building out a space, this is the coverage that protects that investment. Commercial auto with hired and non-owned applies if any employee ever uses their own vehicle to pick up supplies, make a deposit, or run an errand for the business. Employment practices liability insurance covers claims from your own employees. Wrongful termination, discrimination, harassment. Bars and nightclubs have higher turnover than most industries, and higher turnover means more opportunities for employment-related claims. The late night environment also creates situations that employers in other industries may not deal with as often. A commercial umbrella extends the limits on your underlying policies. Commercial contracts, landlord requirements, and liquor license applications may all require higher limits than your base policies provide. But remember, an umbrella does not fix an excluded claim. If your general liability policy excludes assault and battery and your umbrella sits on top of that GL policy, the umbrella may not cover the assault and battery claim either. The underlying coverage has to be in place first. If you own a bar or a nightclub and you have not reviewed your assault and battery coverage, this is the first conversation to have with your agent. Ask how physical altercations are addressed across your policies. Ask whether security-related incidents are covered, including including actions by your own employees, contractors, and third-party security. Ask whether incidents in your parking lot or outside your door are included. And ask whether your umbrella actually follows form over the exposures that matter in this industry. An independent agent can shop this across carriers that actually write bars and nightclubs and build a program that matches how your business operates. Not every carrier will touch this class. The ones that will understand the risks, and an agent who knows the market can get you in front of them. If you want us to take a look at your coverage, there is a link below where you can get started. Subscribe to the channel. We publish most business days, and what we cover is for business owners and homeowners who want to understand their insurance before they need it, not after. Thanks for watching.